Welcome to On a Way, a podcast about grief and loss. Beryl Botman is my name. Good day. During a highly stressful and demanding period of your life, moving house just seems too much to have to cope with. Choosing where to live, however, needs emotional, practical, and financial consideration. Having to deal with this needs a number of issues that you have to face. There's a number of questions that you have to ask yourself. For me, most important questions that you have to ask yourself is my home suitable for my new and changed circumstances? And that is not a very easy question to answer because on a emotional level you are invested in that place, not only financially but also emotionally invested in the place. You have invested however long you have been living there. You might have been raising a family there and all of that. So there would be many memories. There's a whole life together that no longer is. There might be comfort, it might be a place of safety, or it might not be. It might have been for you a place of struggle, a place of strife. You might have experienced much anger, much hurt, and even fear. So, depending on your experiences, life experiences in that house and in that home, with the people who live there and with the person who no longer is around, you have to deal with that on an emotional level. So, on an emotional level, dealing with the absence of that person needs a whole lot of grappling and mourning and grieving that you have to go through. And this might or might not be attached to the home that you have been living in. Another question that I very often ask myself is, how do I continue? How do I make a new living? What do I do? What do I continue to do and what do I stop doing? And all those issues are not very clear and they're not very easy to answer. And so the decisions that you make in connection with them are also not easy to deal with. And another dimension of the home is the home part of the estate? That brings another legal dimension also. Or if the house doesn't belong to you, whose house does it belong? Who must you move? Is it the family member's house or is it the company's house where your husband worked or your partner worked? Those are all the issues that will influence, impact how you have to deal with us. So it's huge. And then if you have dependents, the role of children, are they living with you, or what is the role of the children who aren't living with you? How should they be included in that house? And so the estate becomes a real issue that you have to deal with, and the will has to be executed. So, having dealt with all those issues or giving them some thought and trying to make the right decisions with all those issues in mind, another big issue in my case certainly was, what is the purpose of this dwelling? Why did we live in this particular house? And thinking back of what those reasons are, that would have determined what you could afford, how big the house was there space for others to come and visit and all that, was there a garden, was it an apartment, was it a separate entrance or a flatlet in somebody else's property? What was the purpose of those who lived in the house, And the thinking and acknowledging what that purpose was then has to move into how is it different now that that person has passed. What has changed? That person, your loved one, is no longer around, and so that income might not be there. And so the needs of you and whoever needs to live with you have to be determined, and you have to decide how is it feasible to either continue living where you are or to find alternative accommodation. The question of making a decision to sell a house is not an easy decision to make. It's based on all of those questions that I've already mentioned. So your options are that you can sell, or you can rent, or you can live with other people, or whatever the other options are, depending on the purpose of your house or what you are able to do. You have to also answer the question, why do you want to sell, or why do you want to rent, or why do you want to move or have to? And once you have determined those issues, the next step would be, when do I do this and where to? Those are huge issues to consider. So all of these issues, all of these questions that one needs to ask yourself when talking about where to live, deciding on where to live, all of them have financial implications. Big question being, what can I afford? Do I have bond repayments to maintain? Am I able to do that? Will I be able to continue to be able to do the maintenance that any house needs? Will I be able to afford the municipal costs and all the other costs that comes with not only owning a house but living in a house? So buy or rent is also one of the options, or some of the options to consider. What is it that I can manage? What can I do? And then the who question is as important. Who do I have to accommodate? Taking your current and your new situation into consideration, who is your responsibility to accommodate, to let live in your house? Whose opinions do I have to consider when in all of these decisions that I have to make? Do I have to consider the input of people who had no input or contributions or responsibilities or shown any interest in the property or help with the bond payments or maintenance or any such interest? Do I have to consider people with no such interests also to have them gain access to my home? And I have not had that issue of people claiming my space and my home, but I am aware of many widows in particular who have to deal with people just moving in and people with no responsibilities ever before just moving in. So it's huge implications. So my choices were based on financial reasons and the purpose of the dwelling. Those were the main questions that I had to answer. And so all these issues about who must I accommodate, and so where to live and when to move, all those issues were related to what I can afford, what is financially viable, and what is the purpose of the place where I will continue to live. So the emotions and the memories I have worked through and came to the understanding that the emotions and the memories will go along with me to my next home. And in arranging your new home and in making it your own space, you accommodate your own emotions and the memories of the one you've lost and the life together. In my experience, I've had 2 moves, and both of them were strongly related to the purpose of the house. Sizing down seemed to me like not only manageable but more sensible option, and that in deciding where to size down, where to live, the issues of safety, affordability, of it being a pleasant environment, it being comfortable, it being pretty and homely and a welcoming space. Those were things that I considered. I have had yet another move to an even smaller space. And this time it was more for being fit to grow old in that space. Still being independent, but in a close community that you might not enjoy if you are living on your own in a house or an apartment or in wherever you choose to live. So, all those previously mentioned criteria like safety and affordability also, of course, has some bearing on where I am living at the moment. And I think that moving house and taking all the considerations, keeping all the considerations in mind, making a new living, and if you are able to choose to live on your own, it's an opportunity to make your new home your own, on your own, where you can be safe, pleasant, happy, comfortable, homely, and welcoming. A place that fits your budget. A home. You've been listening to Choosing Where to Live on my podcast On Our Way with Beryl Botman. Walk tall, tell it all. You've been listening to On Our Way with Beryl Botman. You can purchase my books online on Amazon, Takealot, and at bookstores like Exclusive Books, Bargain Books, independent bookstores, and Barnes & Noble internationally. To connect with me, please follow me on Facebook to learn more about my book launches and talks. You can write to me at beryl.botman60@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.